General Zahirul Islam Sahib, worthy speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to extend my gratitude to the Center for Global Strategic Studies, General Zahirul Islam and his team. General Jafri is also here. And I really extend my apology in the beginning, because the reason why I'd requested to speak first is because I have to go to a cabinet meeting, which has already started or is about to start. The issue that this conference or seminar intends to address is, of course, a fundamental issue, not only for Pakistan but globally. Water disputes have been there since time immemorial, and we all know about them. But in the context of Pakistan, it has its own significance. Pakistan and India share an intricate historical relationship. They share a common border, they share culture, tradition, languages, ethnicities, and they also share the waters of the Indus basin. The Indus River, locally we call it the Darya-e-Sindh, is one of the longest rivers in Asia, encompasses a total area of about 1.12 million square kilometers, of which 47% I think falls within the territory of Pakistan. It flows through Jammu and Kashmir, entering into Pakistan through Gilgit-Baltistan, and runs through the provinces of KPK, Punjab and Sindh before it merges into the Arabian Sea. The partition of the Indian subcontinent has given birth to a history of conflict between India and Pakistan. The partition did not consider the implications of dividing the Indus basin in any systematic form. And it was Sir Cyril Radcliffe who had recommended some joint control of the water basin, but that was rejected, principally by India and then also by Pakistan. And we remind ourselves that these rivers, they start in the territory which now is India. A number of water-related disputes have broke out between the two states as early as April 1948, which has even led to wars. And after, say, 9 years of negotiation, we had the Indus Water Treaty in 1960, which was under the umbrella of the World Bank. But essentially, it is a treaty. It's an international treaty between two states. There are resolution methods to resolve problems contained in this Indus Water Treaty. There are various indexes in this water treaty which deal with some methodologies to resolve conflict, if any. Though this treaty is not based on any international water law, but it is governed by political compromises with a focus on engineering solutions, attempting to provide a holistic framework for mutual water management between India and Pakistan. The treaty is widely and correctly cited as a success story for the transboundary sharing of river waters. It has survived despite wars, several skirmishes, cold relations, and frequent military mobilizations during the last now 60-70 years of hostility between two countries. It is in essence a technical treaty. However, unlike most international agreements of this nature, the treaty is not based on any equitable distribution of the water. Instead, it is based on the division of the Indus and its 5 major tributaries between India and Pakistan. As I have as my learned brother General Zahir has already mentioned, that the various tributaries which are associated with the river Indus, if one were to come to the Indus Water Treaty itself, I would refer to Article 3 of the treaty, which allocates the unrestricted use of the western rivers, Indus, Jhelum and Chenab, and its tributaries to Pakistan. And India is under an obligation to let flow the waters of these rivers and is not permitted any interference with these waters except domestic use, non-consumptive use, agricultural use, and generation of hydroelectric power. These uses are regulated and restricted in considerable detail in the annexures. What really is the problem? May I state the problem before this august audience? The problem is that India is using this water to build its technical infrastructure, which it wants to feed its industry. Whereas Pakistan needs this water, that basic minimal level, for the purposes of agriculture and domestic consumption. So this is essentially an international human right issue. The use of water, is it to be wasted away in favor of building infrastructure, or whether it has to first serve agriculture and domestic use? And I think this is no rocket science. If you would look at the international human rights literature, the legal or other non-juridical literature, at any given point in time, emphasis has to be given to domestic use first and also agricultural use. So therefore, even one would look at this debate from this standpoint. Pakistan has an edge. Pakistan has the international human right on its side, but essentially the problem lies in the implementation of the Indus Water Treaty. The Indus Water Treaty, India threatens us that being a treaty, we can cancel it at any given point in time. Well, they can't do so. Under international law, it is one such treaty which can only be terminated by consent. If both parties agree unilaterally, unequivocally, if they agree, only in that event this treaty can be set at naught. Otherwise, unilaterally, this treaty can neither be suspended, nor be terminated. And that is something which India knows, but it is using its strategy to arm twist Pakistan. And maybe this is one of the aspects as to how India has been dealing with Pakistan. Most importantly, the qualification to generation of hydroelectric power is, and this is where India says that it has the permission under the treaty to generate hydroelectric power, is that the use of hydropower is not to affect either the quantity of water reaching Pakistan or to interfere with the natural timing of those flows. Pakistan needs this water, and also the timing of the water and the flow of that water is very important. Since hydropower does not consume water, the only issue is timing. And timing is a very big issue because agriculture in Pakistan depends not only on how much water comes, but also the timing and the season. The reality is that India could tap virtually all the available water, all the available power, without negatively affecting the timing of flows to which Pakistan is entitled. In terms of Article 2 of this treaty, all the waters of the eastern rivers, Ravi, Beas and Satluj and their tributaries, are available for unrestricted use of India. Now the problem with this treaty is that as far as the Pakistani share of the water is concerned, although it says that Pakistan will have uninterrupted use, but some exception is provided for India. But as far as the Indian territory, Indian tributaries are concerned, it is unrestricted, with no exception in favor of Pakistan. So this treaty itself, it starts with an inequitable distribution. And this inequitable distribution is sought to be checked by the dispute resolution which is given in the appendices of this Indus Water Treaty. And the dispute resolution, that there are three types of modalities which are envisaged in this treaty. One is through a neutral expert. The other one is through an arbitral interference. And the third one is through under the auspices of the World Bank. But these three mechanisms, whatever they are, there is a clear-cut methodology as to which particular method of reconciliation or dispute resolution is to be adopted. So what India does, that if it suits India to adopt a particular methodology, even if it does not fit into that compartment, it would insist on that. Say, for example, if there is a situation where a neutral expert should not be resolving the dispute, but for some reason, if it helps India, then India would insist that this is a type of dispute which should be resolved by the neutral expert. Now, this is where the World Bank and the international community has to say something. It has to ensure that this Indus Water Treaty and its dispute resolution is equitably and justly applied, and the disputes are properly resolved. Because unless and until there is a meaningful resolution of the disputes justly, equitably and fairly, the Indus Water Treaty would really just be a piece of paper. And there is a propensity of a greater conflict looming large. There are annexures D and E of the treaty, and India is under an obligation to provide complete information regarding the location of the hydropower plants, particulars, designs, spillways. Spillways are the basic water levels that are to be kept. Now, instead of keeping the water levels intact, the spillways intact, India would argue that since they need the hydropower plants, therefore they cannot keep the minimal level. And that's where the violation starts. The violation then is in terms of design, in terms of keeping the spillways, keeping the minimal levels. There are at least two instances. One is the Kishan Ganga and the Baghdiyar. And the reason I will not go in detail with regard to those, or I would not make reference to those in particular, is because those matters are sub judice with the dispute resolution mechanisms, and I think if the international community is educated or is told that these are the basic design and the basic levels of water which are required for the purposes of implementing the Indus Water Treaty, I think more than half of the problem will be resolved. Article 9 of the treaty discusses the questions which arise under the treaty, and it pertains to settlement of differences and disputes, and in case of non-resolution, the matter, as I just told you, could be taken to the neutral expert, could be taken to the negotiator or the court of arbitration. As a signatory to the treaty, the World Bank's role is limited and procedural. In particular, its role is in relation to differences and disputes and limited to the designation of people to fulfill certain roles when requested by either or both of the parties. But having said that, even this procedural role is to be fulfilled by the World Bank in a fair and equitable manner. If the World Bank, due to some reasons which I don't want to spell out, is unable to act neutrally impartially, then again this Indus Water Treaty will become non-functional. I've already spoken to you about India's threat that they want to arm twist Pakistan by saying that we will bring this Indus Water Treaty to a knot. And my understanding and research tells me that since this is a kind of a treaty, it can only be brought to a knot through mutual consent and not otherwise. The Indus Water Treaty has withstood about 5 decades or so, 6 decades of hostilities between two rivals, including major wars. During this time, neither Pakistan nor India has ever targeted, and that this is a good sign. They've never targeted each other's canals and hydroelectric facilities, nor and also none of the parties has taken a serious stand that they would abrogate the treaty, except that from India's side sometimes there is this threat. In the past decade, however, India has initiated an ambitious program of a number of hydropower development across its Himalayan region, involving the construction of over 60 hydropower projects of various sizes on the headwaters of western rivers, especially Jhelum and Chenab. The Indian side has consistently emphasized that these projects flow from India's development needs and have been undertaken strictly in accordance with the provisions of the treaty. And this is the reason why there is a dispute, because we say that firstly, the building of these hydropower projects only in this region is not without a design. And secondly, India, under the garb of building these hydropower electric projects, has been violating the paradigms of the treaty. Pakistan's major concern in this regard, however, goes beyond the technical confines of the treaty. Rather, Pakistani fears stem from the potential of the Indian projects to interfere with the natural timing of flows from these rivers. The timing of the flows is a critical concern, since agriculture in the Pakistani plains is dependent on adequate water flow during the planting season. It was for this reason that India's capacity to manipulate the timing of flows was hardwired into the treaty by limiting the amount of live storage in each and every dam that India would construct on the two rivers. The limiting of live storage by India under the treaty thus provided some measure of protection to Pakistan against upstream manipulation flows. So in essence, I would say that here is a very important and vital potential problem that could give rise to a greater concern and problem, leading to a bigger conflict than what it seems that it is just any water dispute. Therefore, I impress upon the international community to make its contribution in order to make this Indus Water Treaty meaningful and its implementation becoming successful in a fair and equitable manner. Thank you very much.